Okay, so let's dive right in. Today we're looking at some serious diplomatic drama brewing between the U.S. and Egypt.
Hmm.
Basically, Trump's controversial plan to relocate Palestinians from Gaza.
Right, right.
It's causing a lot of tension, and our main source for this deep dive is a recent Reuters report,
Okay.
which, it's really interesting because it focuses on Egypt's point of view, their perspective on this whole situation,
Yeah.
and, this disagreement. It could have some serious global consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a classic case of like how these geopolitical tensions that maybe have been simmering for a while can just like boil over, especially when you got someone like Trump involved.
Right.
He's known for his how do I put this? Unconventional approach to things.
Let's just say assertive.
Assertive. Yeah, that's a good word.
So Trump's plan, this whole thing has been causing a lot of waves.
Mm.
It's pretty audacious. He's talking about relocating like over 2 million Palestinians from Gaza.
Wow.
Basically, the U.S. would step in, take control, and turn the region into like what he calls, this is the quote, the Riviera of the Middle East.
Riviera.
Yeah. But the really controversial part is he's demanding that Egypt and Jordan, just absorb this massive influx of people.
Oh, wow.
And he's even like threatened to cut aid if they don't play ball.
I see. I see. Yeah, I mean, to really understand how like huge this situation is, you kind of have to understand the history of Gaza, right?
Right.
I mean, it's been like the epicenter of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict for, decades, right?
Yeah.
Super densely populated, not a lot of resources, very complicated political situation. So, like, for a lot of people in the Arab world, this plan feels like really inflammatory. It feels like, a blatant attempt to push the Palestinians aside and just further Israeli interests.
Yeah. And Egypt is definitely not holding back on their opposition. I mean, President Sisi is straight up refusing to even go to the White House if this plan is on the agenda. Like, they're drawing a line in the sand here.
Yeah, I mean, and they have good reason to, right? Like, think about the potential consequences for Egypt if they actually go along with this. I mean, first of all, they'd have to absorb this, like, huge population, right?
Right.
That puts an enormous strain on resources. Like, they're already stretched pretty thin. Could easily lead to, like, social unrest.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole security threat, right?
Yeah.
Egypt has been, they've been battling extremist groups in the Sinai Peninsula for a while now.
Right.
And this whole plan could give those groups like a huge boost, a major recruiting tool. It could really destabilize the whole region.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, frankly, it could even give Israel an excuse for future military action.
Right.
Which, Egypt really wants to avoid.
Definitely. Definitely. So Egypt's foreign minister, Sameh Shoukry, right? He went to Washington recently, and it really felt like his whole mission was damage control, you know? Like, try to put out this diplomatic fire.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, so Shoukry met with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and things got, like, kind of tense when it became clear that the U.S. was basically saying, the Gaza plan is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like, if Sisi wants to come to the White House, this is the price of admission. And Shoukry, he really pushed back. He's like, no, we have our own plan for Gaza, for rebuilding it. And like a key part of that plan is keeping Palestinians on their land.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really like bold move.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows that Egypt is willing to, to stand up to the U.S. to push back against this pressure.
Yeah. And this is like all happening at a really bad time because, the U.S. and Egypt have had this close relationship for decades. It's always been a cornerstone of U.S. Middle East policy.
And of course, we can't forget that Egypt's been a major recipient of U.S. military aid ever since they signed that peace treaty with Israel.
Right. So we're talking billions of dollars here.
Exactly.
So is Egypt really willing to, like, jeopardize all that aid by digging in their heels on this issue?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right.
While Rubio didn't come right out and repeat those aid cut threats, he definitely made it clear that they should seriously consider this plan.
Okay.
There's a Middle East expert, H.A. Hellier. He summed it up really well. He said, Egypt values the relationship with the U.S., but not at the expense of its own national interest.
It's a really tough spot for Egypt, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to balance these, like, national security concerns with, keeping the region stable and also dealing with this, like, economic reliance on U.S. aid.
It's a high wire act, for sure.
For sure.
And this could have, like, even bigger implications, right? If Egypt actually stands firm, if they refuse to budge, it could signal a real shift in the power dynamics in the Middle East.
Right. Yeah.
And what does that mean, for the future of the region, for the Palestinian people? That's the question.
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
So this whole diplomatic standoff, it's definitely not over yet. And whatever happens, the outcome could really reshape the entire political landscape of the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Absolutely. And I think, it's important to remember that this is just like one piece of a much bigger, more complex puzzle.
Right.
It really shows how interconnected everything is globally and how these conflicts that might seem far away can actually have like huge ripple effects. It's a good reminder to, stay informed and keep learning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot to think about, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.